I'm Sarah Chen, 32 years old, and I'm the CEO of a tech company that just secured $8 million in funding. But 6 months ago, I was standing in the back of a conference hall when my boss Marcus looked at a room full of industry leaders and said, "Oh, Sarah, she does our filing." He had no idea that the next day I'd be on that same stage as the keynote speaker, announcing the company that would destroy his career. Before I continue the story, please subscribe. I need to reach 1,000 subscribers so I can keep bringing you stories like this every day. It's just one click for you, but it means a lot to me. 6 months before that conference, I was still Sarah Chen, senior software architect at TechVision Solutions. I'd been there 8 years. 8 years of my life poured into that company. I was employee number 12, back when we were working out of a cramped office space above a coffee shop. I'd led 3 major product launches. I'd built the core architecture for our flagship AI platform, the one that was generating $20 million in annual revenue. My code was running on servers in 43 countries. But here's the thing about corporate America that nobody tells you when you're young and idealistic and just happy to be building cool technology. Competence doesn't always equal recognition. My boss, Marcus Brennan, was 45, silver-haired, great at golf, and even better at taking credit for other people's work. He'd been brought in 2 years earlier as VP of Engineering when private equity took over. They wanted experienced leadership. What they got was a man who could talk the talk in board meetings but couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. Every innovation I created, every problem I solved, every architectural decision I made somehow became Marcus's vision by the time it reached the executive team. I started noticing it about 18 months in. Small things at first, then bigger ones. The moment I knew for certain was when I solved the critical security vulnerability that would have cost us millions. I spent 72 hours straight finding and patching the flaw. The next week, Marcus presented the solution to our CEO and never mentioned my name once. Not once. So I started building something else, not out of revenge, though I won't lie and say that wasn't part of it, but mainly because I had ideas that Marcus kept dismissing as not strategic enough. I had a vision for what enterprise AI could become, and I was tired of waiting for permission to build it. Nights and weekends, I coded, I planned, I built. And then the National Tech Leadership Conference sent out speaker invitations, and I realized I had a choice to make. Marcus had already registered to attend. He had no idea what was coming. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when TechVision was still a dream being built in real time. I joined right out of grad school, 24 years old, with a master's in computer science from Stanford and stars in my eyes. The founders, Tom and Lisa Brennan, no relation to Marcus, were brilliant visionaries who actually understood the technology they were selling. I was employee number 12. We all wore multiple hats. I wrote code, debugged servers at 3 in the morning, helped interview candidates, even picked up lunch orders when we were all too buried to step away from our keyboards. Those were the best years of my professional life. We were building something real, something that mattered. I worked directly with Tom and Lisa on everything. They trusted me. More than that, they saw me. When I proposed the new approach to our data processing pipeline, Tom gave me 3 weeks and a small team to prove the concept. It worked. That architecture became the foundation of our entire platform. We grew 20 employees, 50, 100. By year 5, we hit 200 people, and our Series C funding round brought in $30 million. That's when things changed. The venture capital firms wanted professional management. Tom and Lisa were brilliant technologists, but they'd never scaled a company before. So the board brought in executives. One of them was David Martinez as CTO. David was in his 50s, had built and sold 2 previous companies, and he immediately recognized what I'd built. He promoted me to senior software architect and became my mentor. David taught me how to think strategically, how to document my work, how to communicate technical concepts to non-technical stakeholders. For 3 years, we worked side by side. The company thrived. Then private equity came calling. Tom and Lisa sold for $200 million. The culture shifted overnight. The new owners wanted optimization and experienced leadership at all levels. David saw the writing on the wall and took early retirement. He'd made enough money from the acquisition. He didn't need the politics. That's when they brought in Marcus. His first week, I presented my design for our next generation AI platform in a board meeting. It was revolutionary, truly. Multi-layered neural networks with adaptive learning protocols. The board loved it. 2 days later, Marcus presented the exact same design to the executive team as his own strategic initiative. I was sitting right there in the meeting. Our eyes met for a brief second. He smiled. I said nothing. Loyalty, right? I told myself he was just translating my technical work into business language. I told myself it didn't matter who got credit as long as the work got done. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be lies. Marcus had a gift for reading rooms and climbing ladders. What he didn't have was any real technical depth. In engineering meetings, he'd use buzzwords like synergy and scalability and leveraging our core competencies. When pressed on actual implementation details, he'd pivot. Let's have the technical team drill down on that offline. The technical team meant me. He took credit for wins and distributed blame for failures with surgical precision. When our platform launched a feature that clients loved, Marcus sent an email to the board detailing his vision and execution. When a release had bugs, suddenly it was the team's quality control issues. The team started noticing. I could see it in their faces during meetings, the way they'd glance at me when Marcus claimed ownership of something we all knew I'd built. But here's the thing about corporate dynamics. Nobody wants to be the one to speak up. Everyone has mortgages and families and stock options that haven't vested yet. So they'd catch my eye, offer a sympathetic smile, and say nothing. The security incident was the breaking point. We discovered a critical vulnerability in our authentication system. If exploited, it could have exposed client data across our entire network. We are talking potential losses in the tens of millions, not to mention the reputation damage. I found it on a Friday evening during a routine code review. I spent the entire weekend in my home office, barely sleeping, tracing the flaw through thousands of lines of code. By Sunday night, I had a solution. Elegant, comprehensive, and it closed the vulnerability completely. Monday morning, I documented everything and sent it to Marcus. Tuesday, he presented his solution to our CEO, Jennifer Walsh, in a closed-door meeting. He walked out of that meeting with a $10,000 spot bonus and a company-wide email praising his vigilance and technical excellence. My name appeared nowhere. James Park, a junior developer on my team, was the first person to say something out loud. He was 26, brilliant, and hadn't yet learned to keep his head down. He came to my office after that email went out. "This is insane," he said. "Everyone knows you found that vulnerability. Everyone knows you fixed it." I smiled. "It's fine, James. We're all on the same team." But that night, I started a document on my personal laptop. Date, incident, evidence. I began keeping receipts. 6 months before the conference, I hit a wall. Not a technical wall, an existential one. I was lying in bed at 2 a.m, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with a solution to a problem that had been nagging at me for months. Enterprise AI platforms were too slow, too expensive, and too rigid. I'd pitched Marcus on a new approach 3 months earlier, a fundamentally different architecture that could process data 10 times faster at half the cost. He'd listened for maybe 5 minutes before cutting me off. "Not strategic," he'd said. "We need to focus on our current roadmap." Translation: he didn't understand it, so it wasn't worth pursuing. That night I got out of bed, walked to my home office and started coding, just to see if I could do it. Just to prove to myself that the idea worked. I told myself it was just a hobby project, a way to scratch an intellectual itch. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I worked on it every evening after work, every weekend. I'd tell my partner Rachel I was doing some freelance consulting. She knew I was working on something, but didn't push for details. The prototype came together faster than I'd expected. Turns out, when you're not sitting in pointless meetings and justifying every decision to someone who doesn't understand the technology, you can actually build things. After 6 weeks, I had something real, something that worked. I needed a reality check from someone I trusted, so I reached out to David Martinez. We met at a coffee shop in Palo Alto on a Saturday morning. I walked him through the prototype on my laptop, explaining the architecture, the performance metrics, the potential applications. I watched his face as he absorbed what he was seeing. His eyes lit up. "Sarah," he said quietly, "this is revolutionary. This isn't a side project. This is a company." I laughed nervously. "I'm just exploring an idea." David leaned forward. "I want to invest, and I can connect you with other investors. You need to pursue this seriously." I felt the weight of it then, the choice I was making. "I've been with TechVision for 8 years," I said. "I helped to build that company." David looked at me for a long moment. "Loyalty to people who don't value you isn't loyalty, Sarah. It's self-betrayal." That sentence hit me like cold water. He was right. 2 weeks later, I incorporated next-gen analytics in Delaware. I was officially a founder. I was also officially living a double life. The next 3 months were the most exhausting of my life. By day, I was dutiful, senior software architect Sarah Chen at TechVision. I attended Marcus's staff meetings, nodded along while he presented my ideas as his own, and submitted my status reports on time. By night and every weekend, I was Sarah Chen, CEO of Next Gen Analytics, building something that would eventually compete directly with my employer. The calendar management alone was an art form. I color-coded everything. Blue for TechVision meetings, red for Next Gen investor calls and development work. I set fake calendar entries at TechVision labeled dentist appointment or personal time to cover investor meetings. I told Rachel I was visiting my sister in Portland when I was actually pitching to venture capitalists in San Francisco. The lies piled up. Family emergency, old friend's wedding, medical tests. Each excuse bought me a few hours to work on what I was really building. David was true to his word. He introduced me to 3 angel investors from his network. All 3 had built and sold successful tech companies. All 3 understood immediately what I was creating. My pitch was simple. Enterprise AI is broken. It's too expensive, too slow, and too complicated. Next-gen analytics solves all 3 problems with a fundamentally new architecture. I showed them the performance metrics. My platform processed data 10 times faster than TechVision Solutions at 40% of the cost. One investor asked the obvious question, "What about TechVision? Won't they see this as competition?" I looked her in the eye. They had the chance to build this. They chose not to. They invested $300,000 for 15% equity. With funding secured, I could move faster. I reached out to 2 former colleagues, people I'd worked with at previous companies. Both were exceptional engineers. Both were freelancing. Both jumped at the chance to work on something revolutionary. We communicated through encrypted channels. We held video calls at odd hours. They had no idea I was still employed at TechVision, and I didn't tell them. The product took shape rapidly, an AI-driven analytics platform that learned and adapted in real time. Clean code, elegant architecture, blazing fast performance. Everything I'd wanted to build at TechVision but couldn't because Marcus didn't understand it. Marcus never suspected a thing. Why would he? In his mind, I was the reliable workhorse who showed up, did the work, and never caused problems. He had no idea that every day I was building the weapon that would destroy his credibility. Sometimes during meetings, while he droned on about strategic initiatives, I'd think about the code I'd written the night before. I'd smile and take notes. He probably thought I was impressed with his leadership. I was really just counting down the days. 3 months before the conference, I received 2 emails on the same day. The timing was almost poetic. The first came at 9 in the morning. Marcus had forwarded an invitation to the National Tech Leadership Conference in Chicago. The subject line, FYI, will be out of office. His message was characteristically brief. I'll be attending this conference in November. Need you to hold down the fort and manage the team while I'm gone. Also, review the attached speaker lineup and let me know if anyone is worth meeting. Worth meeting, as if he were the gatekeeper to the entire tech industry. I opened the attachment and skimmed the speaker list. Industry veterans, startup founders, CTOs from Fortune 500 companies. It was the premier event for enterprise technology leadership. Of course, Marcus would be there. The second email arrived 6 hours later. This one came to my Next Gen Analytics address from the conference organizers directly. Dear Miss Chen, we've been following the progress of Next Gen Analytics with great interest. Your platform has generated significant buzz in the enterprise AI space, and we would be honored to have you as a keynote speaker at this year's National Tech Leadership Conference. I read it 3 times. Next Gen Analytics had been doing strategic product demos for the past month, very quietly, very selectively. We'd shown our platform to about 20 key people in the industry, tech journalists, former executives, strategic advisors. The word had spread faster than I'd expected. People were talking, and now they wanted me to speak. At the same conference, Marcus would be attending. The collision course was set. I sat at my desk, staring at both emails open on my laptop screen. 2 different worlds about to crash into each other. Should I decline the keynote? It would be the safe choice. Keep building in secret. Wait until Next Gen Analytics was stronger before going public. Should I tell Marcus? Come clean about the company, resign from TechVision properly, maybe even negotiate some kind of consulting arrangement? For about 20 minutes, I considered both options. Then I thought about every time Marcus had taken credit for my work, every dismissive comment, every moment he'd made me feel small. She does the documentation. Not strategic enough. Let's have the technical team handle that. I hit reply on the conference email. I would be honored to accept the keynote speaking slot. This was my moment. I would attend that conference as 2 different people. By day, the dutiful TechVision employee, Marcus's reliable senior architect. By night, the rising CEO that everyone was talking about. I started preparing 2 different presentations, 2 different outfits, 2 different name badges. Marcus wanted to network and be seen. I was going to give him a show he'd never forget. 2 months before the conference, Marcus dropped a bomb. He called an emergency team meeting and announced we'd be pitching to a major prospective client the same week as the conference, a $20 million contract. Sarah, he said, looking directly at me, I need you to build the entire pitch deck, technical specs, implementation timeline, competitive analysis, the works. I'll deliver it to the client, obviously, but you'll do the heavy lifting, obviously. I was already working 80-hour weeks, 40 hours at TechVision during the day, another 40 on Next Gen Analytics at night and on weekends. Now Marcus wanted me to add a major pitch deck to the pile. I said yes because what else could I say? The next 8 weeks were a blur. I'd arrive at TechVision at 7 in the morning and work on Marcus's presentation until 6 at night. Then I'd go home, eat something Rachel put in front of me, and work on my keynote speech until 2 in the morning. My health started suffering. Dark circles under my eyes. I lost 8 pounds because I kept forgetting to eat. My hands developed a tremor from too much coffee and too little sleep. James caught me in the break room one afternoon, staring blankly at the coffee maker. Sarah, are you okay? You look exhausted. I forced a smile. Big project. You know how it is. He didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. What James didn't know, what nobody at TechVision knew, was that Next Gen Analytics had just signed its first major client, a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company, 20-month contract worth $800,000. We were announcing it at the conference, the same conference where Marcus would be networking and glad-handing and pretending to be an engineering genius. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was literally building Marcus's presentation to win clients for TechVision while simultaneously closing deals for the company that would become his competitor. The stress reached a breaking point one night when I just started crying at my desk at home. Rachel found me there at midnight, tears streaming down my face. Still typing. She closed my laptop. "Talk to me," she said. So I told her everything. The conference, the keynote, the collision that was coming. She listened quietly, then said, "You've earned this moment. Don't back down now." She was right. I was too far in to turn back. 6 weeks before the conference, I presented the completed pitch deck to Marcus. I'd spent 3 weeks on it. 60 slides of pure excellence, technical specifications that sang, implementation timelines that were aggressive but achievable, a competitive analysis that positioned TechVision as the clear market leader, case studies, ROI projections, risk mitigation strategies. It was brilliant, and I knew it. Marcus flipped through it in about 4 minutes. "Looks good," he said, barely glancing at the content. Then he made 3 superficial changes, changed the font on one slide, moved a bullet point, reworded a header that was perfectly clear. Classic Marcus. He had to make changes, had to put his stamp on it, even if the changes added nothing. It was about asserting authority, not improving the work. "I'll present this next month," he said. Should close the deal. Using my strategy, my analysis, my work. I was used to this by now. What came next, I was not prepared for. "Oh, one more thing," Marcus said, as I was gathering my laptop. "I've added you to my conference registration. You'll come with me to Chicago." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "The National Tech Leadership Conference. You'll be my assistant for the week, handle my schedule, take notes at sessions I can't attend, coordinate meetings. It'll be a good networking opportunity for you." My brain stuttered. Assistant? I was a senior software architect with 8 years of experience. I had a master's degree from Stanford. I'd built the core platform that was generating $20 million in annual revenue, and he wanted me to be his assistant? "Marcus, I'm not sure that's the best use of my time," I said carefully. He waved his hand dismissively. "Sarah, you need to think about optics. When I'm networking with CTOs and VPs, it looks more professional if I have support staff. Shows we're a serious organization." Support staff. The words hit me like a slap. "You'll learn a lot," he continued. "Watch how these high-level conversations happen. Take notes. It's professional development." I stood there holding my laptop, feeling something crystallize inside me. Pure, cold anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The calculating kind. "Sure," I heard myself say. "Happy to help." Marcus smiled. "Great. I'll forward you my preliminary schedule. Make sure you book a room at the conference hotel. We need to be accessible." I walked back to my desk in a daze. James looked up as I passed. He must have seen something in my face because he didn't say anything. I sat down, opened my email, and pulled up the draft of my keynote speech, the one I'd be delivering the day after Marcus introduced me to industry leaders as his filing clerk. Any doubt I'd had, any lingering loyalty, any thought of coming clean and resigning gracefully evaporated in that moment. I wasn't going to tell Marcus about next-gen analytics. I wasn't going to warn him. I was going to let him walk into that conference hall and discover it himself in front of everyone. The next few weeks, I became a woman possessed. Every night, after work, I compiled evidence, screenshots of my original architecture designs with timestamps, then screenshots of Marcus's presentations to the board showing those exact same designs with his name on them, emails where I'd sent him technical solutions, followed by emails where he'd forwarded those solutions to executives as his own ideas, with my name conspicuously absent, calendar invitations showing I'd led client meetings, paired with Marcus's trip reports taking credit for the outcomes. I built a timeline spanning 18 months, dozens of incidents, hundreds of hours of my work attributed to him. It was damning, comprehensive, and meticulously organized. I showed it to David over coffee. He sat in silence for 5 minutes, scrolling through the document on my laptop. When he finally looked up, he was furious. "This is theft," he said quietly. "Intellectual theft, credit theft. Sarah, you need to take this to HR after the conference." I smiled. "I have a better plan." I reached out to the conference organizers and confirmed my keynote slot. Then I made a specific request. Could I include a case study comparing legacy enterprise AI platforms with next-generation solutions? They loved the idea. Educational content, they said. Real-world applications. Perfect for the audience. What I didn't tell them was that my legacy platform case study would feature TechVision's exact specifications. Anyone in the industry would recognize it immediately. Meanwhile, at TechVision, Marcus seemed to be going out of his way to diminish me. It was as if sensing the conference approaching made him want to establish the hierarchy even more firmly. In a team meeting, I was explaining a complex technical issue with our authentication system. James and 2 other developers were following along, nodding, asking good questions. Marcus interrupted me mid-sentence. "Let's let the experts handle the technical details, Sarah. You focus on the documentation." The room went silent. I wasn't imagining the awkwardness this time. Even Marcus's most loyal people looked uncomfortable. James's face went red. I smiled pleasantly. "Of course, Marcus. I'll document everything, including this conversation." That night, I added the incident to my timeline. 5 weeks until the conference. The week before the conference, I rehearsed my keynote speech so many times I could recite it in my sleep, standing in my home office at midnight, delivering the presentation to an empty room, timing every transition, every pause, every demonstration of the platform. Next-gen analytics had grown beyond my wildest expectations. 5 full-time employees now, 10 contractors. We'd closed our seed round at $1.2 million in funding. The platform was ready, polished, fast, revolutionary. We were launching publicly at the conference. On Monday, Marcus emailed me his conference schedule. I opened the attachment and felt my stomach drop. There it was, in black and white. Under his registration, Executive Assistant, Sarah Chen. Not colleague, not senior architect. Executive Assistant. I printed it out and put it in my folder. More documentation. At TechVision's office, people started asking questions. I overheard conversations in the break room, saw the confused looks when colleagues reviewed the conference attendee list. Why was Sarah Chen registered as Marcus's assistant? On Wednesday, James finally snapped. We were in a staff meeting when Marcus mentioned the conference. James raised his hand. "Marcus, I have a question. Why is Sarah registered as your assistant? She's our most senior technical person. Shouldn't she be presenting, or at least attending the technical sessions?" Marcus didn't miss a beat. "James, Sarah is brilliant at the detail work, at the technical execution, but she's not quite ready for the spotlight. These conferences are about executive presence, strategic vision. That's not really her strength." Not ready for the spotlight. I sat there, hands folded on the table, face neutral. James looked at me, waiting for me to say something, to defend myself. I smiled slightly and shook my head. Let it go. He sat back, frustrated, but he dropped it. The calm before the storm. Marcus had no idea that while he was explaining why I wasn't ready for the spotlight, I was preparing to stand in the brightest spotlight of my career. 3 days until Chicago. 3 days until everything changed. The conference began on a Tuesday morning in early November. I flew to Chicago separately from Marcus, checked into the conference hotel under my next-gen analytics credentials. The front desk handed me 2 name badge envelopes that had been waiting for me. One read, Sarah Chen, TechVision Solutions, Executive Assistant to VP of Engineering. The other read, Sarah Chen, CEO and Founder, Next-Gen Analytics, Keynote Speaker. I stood in the hotel lobby holding both badges, 2 versions of myself in plastic sleeves. The conference was massive. 3,000 tech professionals from across the country, representatives from every major enterprise software company, journalists from TechCrunch, Wired, Forbes. The main hall buzzed with energy, expensive suits, and the distinctive sound of ambitious people networking. I pinned on my TechVision badge and walked into the opening session. Marcus was already there, working the room like a politician. I watched him from a distance, saw him shake hands, laugh at jokes, mention my team and our platform and the architecture we built at least a dozen times in 10 minutes. I attended the morning sessions, took notes in a small notebook like a dutiful assistant, played the role. Around 11, my phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Coffee, now, main lobby. I found him at a high-top table with 3 people in suits. Potential clients, clearly. I approached with a coffee I'd grabbed from the stand. Ah, Sarah, Marcus said without looking at me. Gentlemen, this is Sarah. She handles our administrative work, keeps everything running smoothly. One of the men, mid-50s with sharp eyes, looked at me with a flicker of recognition. Sarah Chen? I think I've read some of your technical papers on distributed systems architecture. I felt Marcus stiffen slightly beside me. You might be thinking of someone else, Marcus said quickly. Sarah, can you grab me the session schedule? I think I left it upstairs. I smiled. Of course. I walked away, leaving Marcus to redirect the conversation. Tomorrow, I would be on that stage. Tomorrow, everything would change. But today, I was still playing the role he'd written for me. One more day. Day 2. Morning session. The panel was titled Leadership in Engineering Organizations. Marcus was one of 5 panelists, all VPs or CTOs from major tech companies. He looked comfortable up there, relaxed, in his element. I sat in the audience, 10th row center, TechVision badge clearly visible on my blazer. The moderator opened with questions about team development and technical leadership. Marcus held court, talking about building high-performing engineering teams and fostering innovation. The moderator turned to him specifically. Marcus, can you talk about your technical background? How does hands-on experience inform your leadership approach? This was it. I leaned forward slightly. Marcus smiled. Absolutely. My background is in systems architecture. For example, our current platform uses a multi-layered neural network with adaptive learning protocols. I designed that architecture to optimize both speed and accuracy. Every word of that was mine. My design, my architecture, my innovation, presented as his. An audience member raised his hand. Can you elaborate on the adaptive protocols? Specifically, how do you handle real-time model updates without service interruption? Marcus hesitated for just a second. Well, it's a complex system. We use a redundancy approach with rolling updates. The key is maintaining service continuity through, strategic deployment windows. Vague, generic, wrong, actually. Another panelist, a CTO from a competitor, spoke up. I've been following the literature on this topic. I keep seeing the name Sarah Chen on several technical papers about distributed systems architecture. Really impressive work. She looked at Marcus. Is Sarah Chen on your team? I'd love to connect with her. The room seemed to hold its breath. Marcus's eyes scanned the audience, found me. Our gazes locked. He smiled that practiced corporate smile. Oh, Sarah? Yes, she's here actually. He gestured vaguely in my direction. She does our filing and documentation. Good with the paperwork. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. A few people turned to look at me. I sat perfectly still, face neutral, hands folded in my lap. Filing and documentation. The words echoed in my head. 8 years of work, 3 product launches, the core architecture of a $20 million platform, reduced to filing and paperwork. I stood slowly, excused myself from the row, and walked out of the session. In the hallway, I unpinned my TechVision badge, dropped it in my bag, pinned on my other badge. Sarah Chen, CEO and founder, Next Gen Analytics, keynote speaker. Tomorrow morning, main stage. I smiled. The afternoon of day 2, I walked back into the conference hall as a different person. Same face, different badge. The transformation was immediate. People started approaching me. Sarah Chen, from Next Gen Analytics? You're speaking tomorrow? I've heard incredible things about your platform. We need to talk about a potential partnership. It was surreal. With one badge, I was invisible, the filing girl. With another, I was someone worth knowing. I spent the afternoon networking intensely, doing impromptu product demos on my laptop in the hallway. Showed the platform's speed, its efficiency, its elegance. Watched eyes light up as people understood what they were seeing. Tech journalists requested interviews. I gave 3 on the spot, carefully measuring my words. Building anticipation for tomorrow's keynote. One journalist, a woman from TechCrunch, looked at me curiously. Didn't I see you this morning with the TechVision group in the audience during the leadership panel? I smiled. I'm consulting with them on some projects, but Next Gen Analytics is my primary focus. Not a lie, technically. Just not the whole truth. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. He was in different sessions, different parts of the massive conference center. Our paths didn't cross. That evening, the conference organizers released the next day's schedule through the conference app. Push notifications went out to all 3,000 attendees. Tomorrow's keynote prominently featured Disrupting Legacy Systems, How Next Gen Analytics is Revolutionizing Enterprise AI. Keynote speaker, Sarah Chen, CEO and founder, Next Gen Analytics. Within an hour, the session was trending on the conference app. People were marking it as must attend. The buzz was building. Somewhere in the hotel, Marcus's phone buzzed with the notification. I imagine him glancing at it, seeing Sarah Chen in the headline, and not making the connection. There were probably 50 people named Sarah at this conference, maybe more. Why would he think it was me? Why would he ever imagine that his filing girl, his documentation specialist, his executive assistant was the CEO everyone was talking about? Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, main stage. I rehearsed my opening lines one more time in my hotel room. Then I went to bed early. I needed to be sharp. This was my moment. Evening of day 2, I had dinner with David Martinez and my 3 angel investors at a steakhouse 2 blocks from the conference hotel. We had a private room in the back. Champagne arrived before we'd even ordered food. David raised his glass. To Next Gen Analytics, closing a partnership with DataCore Systems this afternoon. 3-year contract, $2.4 million. We clinked glasses. DataCore was a major player in enterprise software. The partnership would be announced immediately after my keynote tomorrow. The validation felt surreal. 6 months ago, I was coding alone in my home office at 2 in the morning. Now I had investors, employees, clients, and partnerships. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Where are you? Need you to review my notes for tomorrow's networking session. I looked at the message for a moment, then put my phone face down on the table. Everything okay? David asked. Everything's perfect, I said. I didn't respond to Marcus. I was done being at his beck and call, done dropping everything because he snapped his fingers. That version of Sarah Chen didn't exist anymore. Back in my hotel room at 10, I reviewed my keynote one final time. The presentation was loaded on my laptop. Every slide, perfect. The case study comparing Legacy Solution A to Next Gen Analytics was devastating. Side-by-side performance metrics. Processing speed. Next Gen Analytics 10 times faster. Cost per transaction. Next Gen Analytics 60% cheaper. Scalability. Next Gen Analytics could handle exponentially more data. I'd included the technical specifications that Marcus had claimed as his own work this morning. Anyone paying attention would recognize them. Anyone technical would see that his vague answers on the panel revealed his lack of true understanding. My phone buzzed again. James this time. Boss is looking for you. Seems stressed. You okay? I typed back. Tell him I'm not feeling well. See you after the conference. I turned off my phone. Set my alarm. Laid out my outfit for tomorrow, a sharp navy suit. For the first time in 6 months, I slept soundly. 8 hours of deep, dreamless sleep. No anxiety, No second guessing. Just calm. Tomorrow everything would change. Day 3, 9 in the morning. The main conference hall held 1,000 people, every seat filled. I stood backstage, checking my microphone pack one last time. Navy suit, next-gen analytics badge, prominently displayed, laptop ready with my presentation. This was the prime speaking slot, right after the morning break when everyone was caffeinated and alert. Through a gap in the curtain, I could see the audience filing in. Tech executives, engineers, journalists, investors. And there, 12 rows back, was Marcus. He'd told me yesterday he planned to skip this session, use the time to network. But I'd overheard his colleague at breakfast. You have to see this next-gen analytics keynote. Everyone's talking about it. So Marcus stayed. The conference organizer walked on stage. Please welcome Sarah Chen, CEO and founder of NextGen Analytics. Previously, a senior architect at several Fortune 500 companies, Sarah is pioneering the next generation of enterprise AI platforms. I walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The audience was attentive. And in row 12, I watched Marcus's face transform from polite interest to confusion to dawning horror. His mouth actually fell open. I smiled and began. Good morning. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm here to talk about what happens when innovation meets resistance. My voice was steady, confident, months of preparation channeled into this moment. 5 years ago, I had an idea for a revolutionary AI platform. I was working at a company I'd helped build from the ground up. I brought my idea to leadership. They dismissed it as not strategic enough. I clicked to my first slide. So I built it anyway. The audience leaned forward. I want to tell you a story about a company where technical excellence took a back seat to corporate politics, where the people doing the work rarely got credit for it, where innovation was stifled because leadership didn't understand the technology they were supposed to be leading. I didn't name TechVision, not yet, but I saw people in the audience exchanging glances. This story was familiar, too familiar. Marcus sat frozen in his seat, face pale. But this isn't a story about that company, I continued. This is a story about what I built instead. I clicked to my demo. Let me show you what next-gen analytics can do. Live demonstration. No slides, no mock-ups, real data processing in real time on the screen behind me. The platform ingested a massive data set, 10 million records, and processed it in 8 seconds. The audience gasped, audible gasps. Then I showed the analytics output. Clean, intuitive, actionable insights delivered instantly. Now, let me show you a comparison, I said. The next slide appeared. 2 columns. Legacy Solution A versus Next Gen Analytics. Processing speed, cost per transaction, scalability metrics, memory usage, error rates. Every specification for Legacy Solution exactly matched TechVision's platform. Anyone in this industry would recognize it immediately. I saw people pulling out their phones, checking TechVision's public documentation, confirming what they were seeing. Next-gen analytics was superior in every single metric. 10 times faster, half the cost, infinitely more scalable. I showed how my architecture solved the authentication problems that Legacy Solution A struggled with, the memory leaks that plagued Legacy Solution A's system, the bottlenecks that limited its performance. In row 12, Marcus had gone completely white. His hands gripped the armrests of his seat. Some of you may recognize Legacy Solution A, I said quietly. You should. I designed it 3 years ago. The audience murmured. At my previous employer, I spent 8 years building innovative solutions, and my innovations were consistently presented by leadership as their own work. Click, new slide, a timeline, technical publications from the past 3 years, all with my name, patent applications, all listing me as the inventor. Conference presentations I'd given at smaller events, each one describing the core architecture that Marcus had claimed as his on a panel just yesterday morning. Yesterday, Someone on a leadership panel took credit for this architecture, I said. Called it his design. When asked a technical question about implementation, he couldn't answer it. The murmuring grew louder. People were putting it together. Marcus and I locked eyes across the hall. His face was a mask of panic and rage. I concluded my keynote with one final slide. Next-gen analytics, built by people who do the work, for people who value innovation over politics. The applause was thunderous. A standing ovation, 1,000 people on their feet. The moderator opened the floor for questions. A journalist in the front row raised her hand immediately. You mentioned your previous employer, the one that dismissed your ideas. Can you elaborate on that experience? I paused, choosing my words carefully. I believe in moving forward, not dwelling on the past. What matters is that innovators get the opportunity to build what they envision. That's what next-gen analytics represents. Professional, diplomatic, forward-looking. But the tech community didn't need me to spell it out. They were already connecting the dots. I found out later that someone had tweeted a photo from yesterday's leadership panel, Marcus mid-sentence, with a caption. This guy just claimed credit for Sarah Chen's architecture, then called her the filing girl. She's the keynote speaker today. Another tweet showed the comparison slide from my presentation with TechVision's logo photoshopped next to Legacy Solution A. Within minutes, #TechVisionGate was trending. When I walked off stage, I was immediately swarmed. Attendees wanting to shake my hand, press requesting interviews, potential clients exchanging business cards, investors pitching me on Series A funding. I saw Marcus trying to push through the crowd. People kept stopping him, asking questions, showing him their phones with the trending hashtags. His face was red. Finally, he reached me. Sarah, we need to talk, privately. I looked at him calmly. Around us, conversations continued, but I could feel people watching. I don't think we have anything to discuss, Marcus. You can't do this, he said, voice low and tight. You signed a non-compete agreement. You're in breach of contract. I smiled. Actually, Marcus, I didn't. Check your HR files. Remember last year when you tried to implement non-competes for senior staff? I refused to sign. You were too busy taking credit for the Anderson project to notice. His jaw clenched. Sarah, you're making a huge mistake. TechVision has lawyers, resources. So do I said quietly. And I have something else, the truth. I turned back to the journalist waiting to interview me. Marcus stood there for another moment, then disappeared into the crowd. Within 3 hours, TechCrunch published the story. TechVision VP called rising CEO the filing girl day before her keynote triumph. By noon, it was everywhere. Wired, Forbes, The Verge, Business Insider. Conference attendees who'd witnessed Marcus's panel comment were being interviewed in the hallways. It was so dismissive, one CTO told the journalist. He basically reduced a brilliant architect to secretarial work. Then she gets on stage and destroys his credibility. The video from yesterday's leadership panel started circulating. Someone had recorded it on their phone. Marcus's exact words, "She does our filing and documentation, good with the paperwork," clipped into a 15-second segment and shared thousands of times. The comments were brutal. This is why women leave tech. Imagine being this confidently mediocre. She built the platform he took credit for, then built a better one. Legend. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I turned off notifications. TechVision's CEO, Robert Harrison, called me directly. I watched it ring and didn't answer. What was there to say? 20 minutes later, James texted. Office is absolute chaos. Marcus just got summoned to headquarters. Emergency board meeting. Everyone's pulling up your keynote video. Sarah, we're so proud of you. I smiled at that. The good people at TechVision, the ones who'd witnessed everything and felt helpless to stop it, finally had validation. Another text from James. Half the engineering team is updating their LinkedIn profiles. Your company hiring? Meanwhile, the business opportunities were overwhelming. My inbox had 32 qualified leads from companies wanting demos. 3 venture capital firms requested meetings about Series A funding. 2 competitors wanted to discuss acquisition possibilities. Acquisition. 6 months after incorporating. David called. "Sarah, you did it. You really did it." "We did it," I corrected. I was sitting in a quiet corner of the hotel lobby, watching conference attendees hurry past, many glancing at me with recognition and respect. I'd already moved beyond TechVision. They were my past. Next-gen analytics was my future, and it was just beginning. 1 week after the conference, I was working full-time at Next-Gen Analytics. I'd submitted my resignation to TechVision via email while still in Chicago, effective immediately. Professional, brief, no explanations necessary. Marcus had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. TechVision's board, facing a public relations nightmare and questions from investors, launched a comprehensive review of his tenure. Other team members started coming forward. Turned out I wasn't the only one Marcus had stolen credit from. Junior developers whose code he'd presented as his own, a product manager whose strategy he'd claimed, a data scientist whose algorithm he'd rebranded. The pattern was undeniable. My email inbox had an unexpected message. Robert Harrison, TechVision's CEO, sent a personal apology. 3 paragraphs acknowledging the failure of leadership, the toxic culture that had been allowed to flourish, the loss of a valuable team member. Then came the offer. Chief Technology Officer, significant equity package, full authority over the engineering organization, a seat on the executive team. "We want to make this right, Sarah. Come back and help us rebuild." I read it twice. Thought about what 24-year-old Sarah would have done. She would have been thrilled, vindicated, accepted immediately. 32-year-old Sarah typed a polite response. "Thank you for the apology and the offer. I appreciate the recognition. However, I'm building something of my own now. I wish TechVision the best. Send." David Martinez officially joined Next-Gen Analytics as a senior advisor. James resigned from TechVision on Friday and started with us on Monday as a lead developer. 2 other engineers from TechVision reached out about opportunities. We signed our 10th major client, a healthcare company, 3-year contract, $1.1 million. Venture capital firms were competing to lead our Series A funding round. We were raising $8 million at a $40 million valuation. 6 months from incorporation to this, my team had grown to 30 people. We'd moved into a real office space in Palo Alto. I had business cards that said CEO. Every morning, I woke up excited to work. No more stolen credit. No more dismissive comments. No more being invisible. Just building something excellent with people who valued the work. 6 months after the conference, Next-Gen Analytics had 25 full-time employees. We'd secured partnerships with 3 Fortune 100 companies. Our revenue was growing 40% month over month. We'd moved into a larger office with actual conference rooms and a coffee bar that didn't dispense sadness in a cup. Forbes ran a feature calling me a rising star CEO to watch. TechCrunch did a deep dive on our technology. Fortune included Next-Gen Analytics in their list of fastest-growing startups in enterprise AI. I did interviews, posed for photos, told my story over and over. But the media attention wasn't the best part. The best part was the culture we'd built. Every Friday, we had team demos where anyone could present what they'd been working on. Credit was given explicitly, publicly. When James solved a particularly nasty bug, I sent a company-wide email with his name in the subject line. When one of our junior developers proposed an innovative approach to data caching, we implemented it and made sure everyone knew whose idea it was. Innovation was celebrated. Everyone had a voice. This was the company I'd always wanted to work for. So I built it. Marcus was fired from TechVision 3 weeks after the conference. The board investigation revealed a pattern of misconduct spanning his entire tenure. Multiple employees with similar stories. Documentation I'd kept that corroborated everything. An internal review found that employee satisfaction in engineering had dropped 30% during his leadership. He struggled to find similar positions after that. Tech is a small world. His reputation preceded him. References were checked, stories were shared. Recruiters Googled his name and found the TechVision Gate coverage. I heard through the grapevine that he was consulting now, taking contract work where he could find it. I didn't follow his career closely. I was too busy building my own success. Here's what I learned through all of this. Loyalty is valuable, but never to those who exploit it. You can be the hardest worker, the most talented person in the room, and still be invisible if the people in power choose not to see you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply being undeniably excellent at what you do. It's building something so good that it speaks for itself. It's succeeding so loudly that the people who dismissed you can't help but hear it. So let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated by a boss? Have you ever had someone take credit for your work? How did you prove them wrong? Drop your stories in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story about workplace justice and career comebacks, subscribe for more, because there are too many Marcus Brennans in the world and not enough people calling them out.